Let's learn how to make delicious keema samosa.
I really need you to hear what I'm saying.
No one can go wrong with a delicious keema samosa. Keema means mincemeat. So we start off with our trinity of onions, garlic and ginger. You want to slice your onions up nice and thin. I'll put all the measurements of everything in the description box underneath the video so you know exactly how much to put of each thing. Then you go ahead and slice up your garlic into small little slices. Because we're going to steam the meat, so it doesn't matter if they're a little bit big because they'll kind of disintegrate as the meat steams. Peel your lovely ginger piece and then grate it because I don't like big chunks of ginger, so I like to grate my ginger in. So that's just a tip for you if you want to. Grab yourself a pot that you're going to cook your keema in and then add in your keema. In go your trinity, your onions, your garlic and your ginger. Then add in some water and then, so I go in with some seasonings. So we start off with some salt and some basaar. Basaar is basically a spice mix. And I'll put in the comments what you can use if you don't have it instead. Some cumin powder, some turmeric, and then put that onto the heat to boil. I'll just put it on a high and then mix it up a little bit, allow it to come to the boil. So once it's boiling and bubbling, just like this, you want to turn the heat down and then put the lid on and allow the meat to steam for about 20 minutes. Say bye-bye to it. So while you're saying bye-bye to that, you want to go ahead and peel up your aloo shalu, so your potatoes, and then cut them into small cubes. And if you have a chopping board and a knife, it makes life a lot easier because you can do quite a few at the same time. Once they're all cubed up, then you go ahead and get yourself a saucepan. We're going to boil the potatoes separately. So put your potatoes in a saucepan. Give them a little rinse first to get rid of the starch. And then fill up the pan with the water and allow them to boil. Right, once all the meat has been steamed, you want to go ahead and put your heat back on high and dry out any remainder water that is left inside the meat. Once the water was almost completely dried, I went ahead and added in some coriander powder, so dhania powder, and then I also added in some red chilli flakes just for a bit of an extra kick. Just continue to saute everything until all that water is completely dry. And also, if you can see big pieces of garlic like this, just kind of break them down a little bit smaller with your wooden spoon. They should break quite easily because they should be nice and soft. So just do that until all the water's dry. Go ahead and add in your oil, and then you want to saute the mince with your oil in until it changes color. So we want it to go nice and brown now. Okay, so that should take about 5 or 6 minutes, and then once it's brown, you want to go ahead and add in your frozen peas. Give them a good mix in. Put the lid on and allow it to steam for a bit. Your potatoes should be done by now. So once they are, you don't want them to be fully like mushy, you just want them to be partially cooked. So drain off your water from your potatoes and then go ahead and add that into your keema and peas mixture. Give it a gentle mix together. At this point, you can taste it for seasoning too. If you want to adjust any of the spices, adjust the salt or anything like that, have a taste and see whatever needs adding in and just bob it in. Finally, add some garam masala and some fresh coriander. And as usual, guys, mine is a frozen because, guys, I don't use coriander that often. I know it seems like I do, but I don't. So that's why I have to freeze it when I buy it. So stir that in until everything is mixed, and that is pretty much our samosa masala ready. So you want to let that cool. So allow it to cool completely to the side while you get your pastry ready. For the pastry, I'm going to be using unsalted butter. The butter is what gives it a nice flakiness because it's just really, really good. You know, similar to like how you get flakiness in a croissant from the butter. So we're using butter, not oil, because it makes the pastry nice and crispy. So weigh out your butter, and then you want to go ahead and melt your butter in the microwave. Or you just weigh out into a saucepan if you don't have a microwave, and then melt it in a saucepan. Then weigh out your plain flour into a large mixing bowl. Your butter should be completely melted like this, so just put that to the side for now. Add in some salt into your plain flour and also some cumin seeds, or you can use ajwain if you want to instead. My mother-in-law prefers ajwain, but to be honest, I don't really keep ajwain at home because I don't use it for anything, so I just use cumin seeds. But either, whatever you prefer. And then you add in your melted butter, all of it, and then you basically mix that in until it kind of forms like a crumb consistency. Just mix all your butter in nice and well. Now we're going to slowly add some water to it to bring the dough together. Now you just need to add enough water to bring the dough together because this is a pastry, not a bread, remember? So you don't really need to knead it. So I'm just basically squeezing the dough and then adding small amounts of water in bit by bit until all the dough completely comes together. And like I mentioned, it's a pastry, it's not a bread, so it doesn't really need kneading. It just needs some binding. You bind it, squeeze it together until it comes together, right? Perfecto. Also use warm water because if you use really cold water, then you'll get clumps of butter in your pastry and you don't want that. Once you have gathered all your flour together, it should form a dough and look like this. You want to leave that to rest to the side while you go ahead and prep your surface to cook the rotis for the samosas. So we make round rotis for the samosas and then we cut them in half, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So you want to get yourself a skillet, put it on a medium heat, get some extra flour on your work surface, and then you want to take a ball of samosa dough, and I weighed mine, every single dough ball, to the same weight so that all my samosas were exactly the same size, and each samosa weighed 50 grams. Okay, the dough ball weighed 50 grams. So what I did is I made all the dough balls in advance and then I rolled them out and cooked them because it's just faster like that. But if you don't really care about having equal size samosas, you don't have to weigh it. Just roughly get the same amount of dough. So mine weighed 50 grams, just to give you an idea. Then you gather your dough ball, forgetting how to speak now. Gather your dough ball into your hand and then kind of flatten it out and add some excess flour to it so that it's easy to roll out. Now you're going to go ahead and roll it out into a nice even circle as best as you can. So as you can see, I'm kind of doing like a rotating motion with the rolling pin, and that kind of helps move the dough. And then if it starts sticking, just go ahead and add some more plain flour to it. That's absolutely fine. So you want to roll it out pretty thin, but not too thin. Okay, so I don't really know how to explain the thinness, but just have a look at the video and you can kind of roughly tell. I mean, you can't really see through the pastry, but it is quite thin. I rolled it quite thin. Once you've finished rolling it out, get rid of any excess flour. So pick it up, give it a bit of a shake, get rid of that excess flour, and then pop it onto your skillet, okay? And you should cook it just on one side until the colour begins to change, and then you want to flip it over to the other side and cook the other side again, just for a few seconds. I'd say roughly about 30 seconds on each side, just so that the roti is partially cooked. And what that does, it helps you handle the roti and it makes it a lot easier to fill the samosa. If you don't partially cook it, when you try to fill the samosa, the pastry rips pretty easily. So it's really hard to fill them, and also they freeze better like this as well. So once all your rotis are made, just stack them up onto a plate. Now we're going to go ahead and make the glue that joins our samosas together. So all you do is get some plain flour in a bowl and add some water to it and just kind of make a thick paste. It should look like this, and you're going to use that to join your samosa rotis together. So like I mentioned before, one roti makes two samosas. So you cut the roti in half, just like so. Once you've cut it in half, you're going to get some of that paste that you made earlier, and you're going to apply it to the top half of your samosa pastry, just like so. Then you want to fold it over into a cone shape. So you want the seam to go in the middle of the samosa, okay? This helps it stay in place so that it doesn't open up later. So fix it down firmly. Then you want to go ahead and fill in your filling. So make sure that your filling is cold when you put it in your pastry, okay? You don't want to put warm filling in. A heaped tablespoon of filling into your samosa pastry. As you can see, mine was still a bit warm. I tried to put it into a separate plate and cool it down, but I wanted to finish off the video, so I just made a couple with a warm filling. You shouldn't really do that, okay? So go ahead and apply some paste to the top of the samosa, and then you want to squeeze it down to seal it firmly Okay, and now to fix it down a bit more firmly, what I do is I get a fork and then I just kind of squash it down the edge with a fork just to make sure that everything is sealed properly. And that is pretty much your samosa ready. So you just repeat the process for all your samosas and that's it. So if you want to, you can go ahead and make a large batch. This is what most households normally will do, is make a large batch of samosas, and at this point, once they're made like this and raw still, then they go ahead and freeze them. So I normally put mine in freezer bags, about 5 or 6 in one freezer bag, and then freeze them like that, and they last for a good 6 to 7 months in the freezer. So you can do that, you can freeze them, they freeze really well, and then when you're ready to make them, you just defrost them and then fry them as usual. So when you're ready to eat your samosas, all you need to do is fry them up until they're nice and golden on both sides and then serve and enjoy.